Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Now, this video, I will be talking about how OCD takes orders from beliefs, okay? So think, when you're triggered, OCD is sounding the alarm. It's sounding that alarm, it's detecting a threat. Okay, let me explain how this works. So let's say, for example, you are suffering with driving OCD, okay? So the threat is that because you hold the belief and the very rigid black and white demand that I must not do wrong whilst driving, I must perfect driving, I cannot possibly cause any harm, I can't drive incorrectly, I can't drive against the law, I can't possibly make a mistake. Because of those very rigid, inflexible black and white demands, it detects anything that puts that belief into jeopardy and it sounds the alarm. Hence the adrenaline rush that you feel, the trigger response that you feel, because it's trying to keep you safe, it's trying to protect you, it's trying to alert you that there is a threat, there's a danger here, so act, urgency, urgency, urgency. Hence why that trigger feels very life and death. And that's how it works. Okay, if you compare this with other themes, for example, let's say you're suffering with HOCD, gay OCD, whatever you wish to call it. Now, if you hold the very rigid demand, and also catastrophizing as well, but let's just focus on demands for now. If you're holding that I must know for sure that I am attracted to the opposite sex, I have to know for sure that I am not gay, that I am not homosexual, then any slight thing that puts that into jeopardy, whether that's you're around a gay person, whether you'll have an intrusive thought around someone of the same sex, whether OCD finds something in the past that it latches to, it sounds that alarm again. It detects the threat, and hence why you feel triggered, okay? Because it's going against the rigid belief that you're holding. It's putting that very rigid demand that you're holding, it puts that into jeopardy, okay? So it then sounds that alarm, it's that life and death, that fight or flight response, and that's how the trigger's operating. Okay, let's use this with a health OCD example. Okay, so if you're saying, I must not die at a young age, I must not get ill, I just cannot get ill, I should live to X age, I just simply cannot die at a young age. So what OCD then does, it finds anything that puts that irrational belief into jeopardy, so you're going to doubt it. So let's say, for example, you have a symptom that is very common with cancer, okay? Or maybe some neurological disease. But let's just stick to cancer because this is a very common fear with health OCD. So let's say you suddenly you have consistent headaches or sort of sweating through the night or weight loss and things like that. OCD is going to latch to that. It's going to go, right, that puts the irrational beliefs that you hold into jeopardy. Therefore, the triggered response then fires, okay? So you then go, right, shit, because this could potentially put the belief of I must not die at a young age into threat, into danger, into jeopardy, it then is trying to save your life, it's trying to protect you, it's trying to make you act now, act quick, act quick. The problem of OCD, that the amygdala, if you wish, it's faulty, it's misfiring. Okay, if you wish to get technical, you don't have to, but it's misfiring. It's designed to save your life, but then it's misfiring, meaning that you're going to then quit, shit, if I go to the doctors right now, I'll be fixed. Okay, brilliant. Go to the doctors, come back, it finds something else. A day later at the doctors again. Come back, find something else. Oh, the scan was wrong. Oh, the tests are incorrect. At the doctors again. Okay, so it's trying to keep you safe, but it's obviously misfiring because of the demands and because that's what OCD does. That's the nature of the disorder. So it finds the very rigid black and white demands that you're holding, the all or nothing way of thinking, and it puts that into jeopardy and goes, right, do something, act now. Okay, and that's why it feels so urgent. That's why it feels so fight or flight response. Okay? Let's use a slightly different theme. Let's use real event false memory, okay? So let's say you have the belief that I must not do wrong. I should always act immorally. I have to make sure that I've done nothing wrong in the past. I just cannot act in a way that is deemed as slightly immoral or incorrect or illegal or just bad or just wrong, right? Now, because you hold that very rigid demand, what does it do? It finds something in the past that puts that demand into jeopardy, that tries to prove that demand wrong, And then let's say it finds something that you did when you were 14. It finds something that you can't remember what you did on a drunken night out. Right, there we are. You may have done wrong, or you have done wrong, hence why we call it relevant/false memory, because trying to work out is a completely dead end. That's a futile pursuit. You've done wrong, so it then, like I say, that belief is now in danger. OCD takes order from that belief that you may have done wrong, and it's gone, well, here's the evidence that because you're saying you must not do wrong, it's found evidence now. So it then triggers that same response to keep you alive, because it's trying to protect you, because it detects a threat against the irrational belief. Okay, and that's what it's doing there, right? Let's have a look how it's working with catastrophizing, right? Let's go back to the original theme that I did, to the driving OCD. If you're catastrophizing the worst case scenario, if you're awfulizing it, if you are terribilizing it, if you are horribilizing it and implying it as the worst possible thing ever, if I make a mistake whilst driving, that I'm the worst person, my life's over, I cannot live with myself, I'm the worst total person ever to live on this planet, then because you hold that belief, it finds a thing when you're driving where you can't quite remember, maybe you lost concentration, maybe you just couldn't quite remember what happened, maybe you're driving, you're slightly close to a pedestrian or cyclist, it's gone, right, that was a mistake, that was a potential mistake, because you're holding the belief that it's a catastrophe if you make a mistake, that then triggers that same fight or flight response, the adrenaline rush, the uncomfortable feelings throughout the body, because it's trying to keep you alive. It's designed to keep you alive. Alert, make a decision. Come on, urgency, make a decision. But that's obviously very uncomfortable when you're getting triggered all day long, okay? Because that trigger will be great. If I threw something in your head right now, you want to feel that. You want to feel that alert, on edge feeling, because you can move out of the way, right? But it's misfiring because it's trying to protect you, but you need to show your brain there is no threat there. That's why belief work is so important, okay? But can you see what it's doing there? Because you hold that catastrophizing belief, it then finds something like driving, where you could just have a trigger whilst driving. So like I say, you might make a mistake whilst driving. It then goes, right, because you're catastrophizing this thing puts that into jeopardy. Therefore, it acts against that belief, and then that panic response then is fires. That anxiety response then fires. Okay, because it's putting the belief into jeopardy. Okay, let's use the other example, HOCD, right? If you're catastrophizing the worst case, if you're saying it's terrible, it's awful not knowing my sexuality, it'd just be the worst thing ever if that was true, and if I didn't ever know my sexuality, then it's going to put that into jeopardy. It's going to find something that goes, yeah, but Sam, you may never know. In 30 years' time, you may never know if you're straight, if you're homosexual, you may never know, right? And because that goes against the belief, and obviously the belief that it will be awful, the worst thing ever, it's then going to send that response again, hence why you feel triggered, that adrenaline rush through the body. Okay? Same with other fears, the health OCD. If you're catastrophizing dying early at a young age, if you're catastrophizing getting ill, if you're awfulizing getting ill, it's going to find something that puts that at risk. Oh my God, this may be a cancer symptom. Oh my God, this may be some serious disease. Oh God, oh God, oh God. If you're then catastrophizing that, it's going to latch to that, hence what goes after that, because it looks at the belief that you're holding, the catastrophizing belief, it's scanning for things that puts that at risk, and then when it finds something, it fires that same response. Okay, that's what's happening there. Same with relevant false memory. If you're catastrophizing if you've done wrong, if you're calling yourself an evil, horrible person, if you're saying my life's done, over, written off, can't be happy, I'm undeserving, I can't be let off the hook, I deserve no joy, I'm undeserving of any peace, then of course it's going to find something that puts that belief, that anything that goes against that belief, anything, right, oh my God, you've done wrong, that means you're awful. So it's then detecting that threat, it's sounding the alarm to try and find anything that you've done wrong, hence why your brain scans, okay? So ultimately this is why belief work is so important, okay? Because think when you're triggered, it's always going after something that you can't accept. Remember that, and that's why belief work is so important. So we've got to break down these rigid demands, look at the self-downing, look at the catastrophizing, tuning that down. Instead of self-downing, we're applying self-acceptance. Instead of catastrophizing, we're applying more preferences and desires, and so we're not catastrophizing. So for example, it's a huge inconvenience, it's a huge frustration, it's a huge annoyance, it's a big concern, it really wouldn't be ideal, it would be very unpleasant, okay? It would be be an uncomfortable situation, right? Very unfortunate situation. But as soon as you say it's awful, it's terrible, it's horrible, the worst thing ever, then of course OCD is going to latch to that because it takes order from that belief, and then it fires that triggered response. That triggered response, all the sensations that you feel, the guilt, anxiety, the shame, panic, and depression, and so on, that gradually starts coming down once we change those beliefs from catastrophizing to more anti-catastrophizing beliefs, okay? Such as inconvenient, frustration, annoyance, pain in the ass, not ideal, rather than going from the 0 to 100 extreme, okay? Same with demands, okay? If you're holding the demands, the musts, the absolute shoulds, the oughts, the needs, the have-tos, the got-tos, all the very black and white, all or nothing, inflexible, rigid demands, once we start changing them to more healthy desires, to more flexible preferences, then OCD starts taking a step back, okay? Because it takes orders from beliefs, remember? So if you just have a flexible preference to not do wrong, okay? If you just have a very strong desire to not die at a young age with health OCD, then yes, the concern will be there. So you still are on the lookout for concerns or any health concern, of course, right? That's healthy. You want that. You're not trying to eradicate every fear. You're not trying to eliminate every risk. No, there will be concerns. There will be frustrations. There will be annoyances in life, okay? But the thing with this, if you stay to the rigid demands, then of course it's going to continue misfiring. It's going to continue firing that response because it's like, yeah, but Sam, that goes against that demand. Where instead you bring it back down to flexible preferences and healthy desires, then OCD starts taking a step back. Okay, so it's just that concern rather than that sudden panic or that 24/7 latching mechanism. Okay, where it's just that chronic guilt and shame and panic and depression and anxiety pumping all the time. Okay, that is why belief work is so important. Okay, it's taking orders from beliefs, it's looking to put any of the beliefs in jeopardy, hence why it's scanning for risks, it's scanning for threats. For that to come down, for that automatic scanning to come down, for that automatic rumination to come down, belief work is so important, okay? Shifting beliefs, okay? Very, very important. Now you may ask, how is behavior work important with this? Well, let me explain. So for example, let's use an example, HOCD. Let's use gay OCD again, okay? Now, if you were avoiding gay bars, avoiding anyone who's gay, avoiding anyone where you're unsure of their sexuality, right? Now, each time you then avoid, so let's say you're walking along, or let's say you're in a room, or you're just in a pub, and someone you're not quite sure their sexuality, you're not quite sure how you're going to react, they walk into the pub, you run out, well, you're showing your brain there's a genuine threat. You're showing your brain that, good job, well done for detecting that threat, good job, and that just prolongs the suffering. Right? So the compulsion there is fueling the fear even more. It's fueling the suffering even more, right? Because you running away, you doing the compulsion of avoidance, it then just builds that threat. It adds power to that fear, right? Because you're showing your brain there's a genuine threat. You're showing it that it's doing a good job, right? Hence why we have to stop compulsions, do exposures, and show the brain that it's nowhere near as scary as we're perceiving. We're confronting the fear and showing, look, like a baby, you're showing it, look, there is nothing scary here. Okay, that takes time. Hence why exposures have to be done consistently and over time, and again, and again, and again, and again. Otherwise, if you keep going, right, I did the exposure once, now I'm going to avoid again, that threat, that fear starts building back up and starts having more power and having more, more say on your life, right? And you start avoiding other things and it spreads and so on. Okay, let's say with driving OCD, let's say you're avoiding driving, let's say you're avoiding motorways, let's say you're just avoiding any busy, crowded area where you could potentially crash, let's say you're avoiding rush hour, where there's cyclists, where there's pedestrians and so on. Well, you're showing your brain that avoidance is good, that the compulsion is keeping you safe, therefore the fear is going to prolong, it's going to build power, it's going to be even harder to get over because you're showing that it's a genuine threat. So it's going to keep sounding the alarm when you're acting against the fear, when you're acting against the compulsion, okay? Initially, when you act against the compulsion, this is very important, initially, the anxiety, all the symptoms will increase, it will go through the roof because you're going against what you've been doing pretty much your whole life with avoidance, okay? But to show our brain that and to change things and to bring down that catastrophic reaction of, come on, do something, urgency, life or death, you've got to show your brain there is no threat there. But that doesn't just happen by telling yourself belief work. Okay, that's very important, but you've also got to cut compulsions as well and do exposure and expose yourself to the fear. Okay, otherwise you'll remain just terrified of that. Okay, it's like the spider analogy. If I was scared of spiders, right, if I just kept writing down spiders aren't scary, nowhere near as scary, why shouldn't spiders be this scary? And all they're trying to do is survive. They're just on this planet. They're more scared of us. They're just trying to survive and be happy with their family or whatever. If you just looked into all the history of spiders and what they do, but if I still never went anywhere near a spider and didn't even touch a spider, didn't even look at a spider, that fear is still going to be very, very high. Okay, so you've actually got to confront the fear as well, right? Very, very important. Let's say with real event false memory, you can say, well, what am I doing here? But with real event false memory, you start avoiding, for me personally, I'd be avoiding life, right? I'd be avoiding living life. I wouldn't go to music concerts. That self-neglecting cycle. So I wouldn't go to sport. I'd avoid any sort of career and focus on any interest and hobby, anything that I really wanted to enjoy, any challenge in life, anything that I wanted to do, would completely numb that, because it thought, well, what's the point? You've done this thing in the past. But now I'm showing my brain that I just can't stand the feelings, that I can't stand the guilt. And I'm also making the connection that because of this thing in the past, I can't do that. Well, that's not true, right? Because we are inventing that belief. We have created that belief. So to uncreate that belief, to let go of that irrational belief, and to let go of that irrational concept that we've made up, we have to do things regardless, even if we've done wrong in the past, even if we've made a mistake, even if you've broken the law, even if you've acted immorally. Because if you just avoid and just never leave the house and just avoid everything because of this thing in the past, because of the guilt, and if only they knew and so on, then that fear is going to remain high. And if anything, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, because actually getting out of your house and doing things again will seem a lot harder. Okay, so you've got to do things regardless whilst you do belief work, and vice versa. So whilst you're doing behavior work, you've got to focus on beliefs as well. So these two intertwine. You can't have one and not the other. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I hope that explains how the cycle's working and why we get stuck in that vicious circle. Okay, why that threat detection system is sounding, why the alarm is being sounded, why OCD is going, do something, urgency, move, threat, move. Because of the beliefs at play, because of the irrational beliefs, anything that looks to put those irrational beliefs into jeopardy, to put it at risk, it's scanning for things. Right, you've done this, so it puts that demand into jeopardy, hence why you then panic, and that fuels the emotional disturbance. Plus, if you continue to avoid, if you continue to do compulsions, if you continue to search for relief with reassurance and confessing and Googling, and you're showing your brain that there's a genuine threat, that you can't handle it, that it's the worst thing ever, you're putting the irrational beliefs into action by doing compulsions. So we need to change irrational beliefs into rational beliefs, and with disputing work, with unconditional acceptance and so on. Okay, and we also need to cut compulsions like our life depends on it. Do exposures like our life depends on it. Otherwise, the fear will remain. And every time you avoid, every time you engage in the compulsions, you are just prolonging that cycle even further. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like. If you're interested in our one-to-one services, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com, and you can get in touch with one of the coaches here. You've got me, Sam, you've got Nick, you've got Rob, you've got Mom, and you've got Gemma, and we can fit you in as soon as we can. Anyway, you take care, look after yourself, and I'll speak again. Bye-bye.